Do you hear it? The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten truths, fragments of memories lost in the shadows. Welcome to BRAINROT, Echoes, where we bring you stories long buried, unravel mysteries cloaked by time, and guide you through the darkest corners of the mind and the universe. Each video is more than just content. It's an echo resonating deep within, urging you to question, to wonder, to explore. Backend index pointing right, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us in listening to the echoes the world tried to silence. The Vultax's gravest mistake. Let me get this straight, Admiral Xylos said, his four eyes blinking in perfect asynchronous harmony while staring at the tactical display. You're telling me that this thing just obliterated our entire 7th Fleet? Commander Vark, whose species had evolved from something that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a filing cabinet, clicked his mandibles nervously. Yes, sir. Complete annihilation in approximately 12 seconds. 12 seconds. 12.7 to be precise. The Admiral's secondary arms gestured at the holographic wreckage floating in space. Our 7th Fleet, 412 vessels, including the flagship Unstoppable Conqueror, gone in 12 seconds. 12.7. I heard you the first time. Now, you might be wondering how we got here. How the mighty Vultax Empire, conquerors of 23 star systems and possessors of the galaxy's most aggressively named spacecraft, found themselves staring at what used to be their most prestigious battle fleet, now reduced to glowing debris and regret. Well, it all started with what the humans called Project Genesis, though in typical human fashion, they labeled it something completely boring in their official documents, something like the Comet Exploration Initiative or the Advanced Atmospheric Survey Program. Because apparently, when humans are about to build something that could crack a planet in half, they name it after office supplies. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind to about 8 months ago, when Captain Anya Sharma was having what she would later describe as the worst goddamn Wednesday of her military career. And this was a woman who once had to explain to her commanding officer why her entire squad had gotten food poisoning from alien berries during a diplomatic mission. Sharma, get your ass in here. The voice belonged to General Mikhail Volkov, a man who had risen through the ranks of Earth Space Defense Corps by being approximately as subtle as a meteor impact and twice as destructive to his enemy's morale. Sharma had served under him for 4 years and had developed a healthy respect for his tactical genius and an even healthier fear of his vocabulary. "You've bellowed, General," Sharma said, sliding into his office with the practiced ease of someone who'd been summoned to many uncomfortable conversations. "Don't get smart with me, Captain. I've got something that's either going to make your career or get you court-martialed. Possibly both." Sharma, 32, and having already survived 3 alien first contact scenarios, a black hole navigation incident, and General Volkov's legendary Christmas parties, settled into the chair across from his desk. "I'm listening." "Good, because what I'm about to tell you is so classified that the classification itself is classified." Volkov pulled up a holographic display that showed what looked like a standard Earth-class destroyer. Meet the ESC Genesis. Nice-looking ship, very destroyery. This is not a destroyer, Sharma. This is humanity's first attempt at reverse engineering alien technology we've acquired over the past decade. Acquired. More like found lying around after their previous owners experienced sudden and terminal cases of thinking they could invade Earth. Sharma studied the display more carefully. The ship looked normal enough, standard human design philosophy, which could be summarized as, if it's not built like a brick house, it's not built right. But there were subtle differences. The hull gleamed with an almost organic sheen, and the weapon arrays seemed to follow mathematical patterns that made her eyes water if she looked at them too long. "What exactly are we talking about here, General?" "We're talking about a ship that, according to our engineers, should be able to punch through a standard battle cruiser's shields like they're made of tissue paper. We're talking about faster-than-light capabilities that make our current jump drives look like paddle boats. We're talking about enough firepower to level a small moon. And you want me to? I want you to take it for a test drive." There was a long pause. Sharma had learned through painful experience that when General Volkov got that particular look in his eyes, the one that suggested he was either about to do something brilliant or something that would result in a very awkward conversation with Earth's insurance company. It was best to think very carefully before responding. General, with all due respect, shouldn't a test flight be handled by someone with, actual experience with alien technology? Sharma, you've been in more first contact situations than anyone else in the Corps. You fought off 3 separate invasion attempts. You once successfully negotiated a peace treaty while dangling upside down from an alien torture device. That was more about survival than skill. And you've never lost a ship under your command. I'll come close. Close doesn't count in horseshoes, hand grenades, or interstellar warfare. Volkov leaned forward. Besides, the Genesis isn't going to be flying solo. We're giving you the best crew we can assemble. How best are we talking? Lieutenant Commander Kale, as your XO, best tactical officer in the fleet. Chief Engineer Lena Petrova. She's the one who figured out how half this alien tech works in the first place. Navigation Officer Ben Carter. He can plot a jump course through a black hole's event horizon and still arrive on time. And Dr. Eris Thorne for Science Officer. He's got 3 PhDs in xenobiology, theoretical physics, and what he calls creative problem-solving. Sharma nodded slowly. Those were good names. People she'd trust with her life, which was apparently what she was about to do. What's the mission? Simple. Take the ship out for a shakedown cruise. Test the systems. See if it explodes. And if it does explode, try to aim it at something that deserves it. Now, this is where things get interesting, because while Sharma was having this conversation approximately 60 light-years away, Admiral Xylos was having a very different kind of meeting. The humans have been quiet for too long, he said, addressing the assembled commanders of the Vultax 7th Fleet. Intelligence suggests they're developing new technologies. With respect, Admiral, Commander Euler said, whose species looked like they'd been designed by a committee of particularly vindictive art students. Human technology is hardly a concern. They've only been spacefaring for, 50 of their years? We've been conquering star systems since before their ancestors learned to make fire. That's exactly the kind of thinking that got the Zifrin defeated, Xylos replied. And the Crystalline Confederacy. And the Void Hunters. Humans got lucky 3 times. Lightning in a bottle. Admiral Xylos's upper arms crossed while his lower arms gestured dismissively. Commander, I've studied every engagement the humans have been involved in. They don't fight like any species we've encountered. They don't follow established tactical doctrines. They seem to view warfare as a creative exercise. Meaning they do things that shouldn't work, which is precisely why they do work. They've turned improvisation into an art form. Xylos activated a tactical display showing Earth's solar system. Intelligence suggests they're testing something new, something potentially dangerous to us, to everyone. Back on Earth, Sharma was getting her first look at the Genesis, and she had to admit, it was impressive. The ship was about the size of a standard destroyer, but it moved with a grace that seemed almost alive. The whole surface rippled with patterns of light that followed no earthly physics, and the engine's signatures showed power readings that shouldn't have been possible with current human technology. She's beautiful, Lieutenant Commander Kale said, who had the kind of appreciation for destructive machinery that made him extremely good at his job and extremely worrying at parties. She's terrifying, Chief Petrova corrected, running her hands over a control panel that seemed to respond to her touch before she'd even made contact. The power systems alone could probably supply a small city. The weapons? She trailed off, shaking her head. The weapons what? Sharma asked. The weapons are things that I'm pretty sure violate several laws of physics and at least 2 international treaties. Dr. Thorne looked up from his sensor readings. The ship's computer systems are partially organic. They're actually learning from our interactions. It's like the ship is becoming more efficient every time we use it. Learning how? I'm not entirely certain, but I think it's incorporating alien neural network patterns. The ship is essentially thinking. Sharma absorbed this information with the kind of calm that comes from years of dealing with situations that would send most people screaming for the nearest exit. So, we're flying a sentient weapon of mass destruction that's powered by technology we don't fully understand. That's accurate. And we're taking on a test flight. Also accurate. Well, what could possibly go wrong? Now, in the interest of fairness, I should mention that Sharma wasn't being entirely sarcastic. She'd learned that when dealing with alien technology, the best approach was to expect the worst and be pleasantly surprised if you only lost half your crew instead of everyone. The Genesis launched from Earth's primary shipyard on a Tuesday morning local time. The departure was kept quiet. No fanfare, no media coverage. Just a ship slipping away from Earth like a shadow, departing at dawn. Sharma settled into the captain's chair, which seemed to adjust itself to her body in ways that were both comfortable and slightly disturbing. "All stations report ready, Captain," Kale announced. "Take us out nice and easy," Sharma ordered. "Let's see what this thing can do." What it could do, as it turned out, was everything their best ships could do, but better. The Genesis moved through space with an efficiency that made their previous vessels look like they were swimming through molasses. The engines hummed with a sound that wasn't quite mechanical, wasn't quite organic, but somehow managed to be both reassuring and unsettling. "Jump drive is ready, Captain," Carter reported. "Coordinates laid in for the test range. Engage." The jump was smooth, smoother than anything Sharma had ever experienced. Instead of the usual violent transition that left everyone's stomach somewhere in the vicinity of their ankles, the Genesis seemed to simply step sideways through reality. "Jump complete," Carter announced, and Sharma could hear the awe in his voice. Transit time was, "That can't be right." "What can't be right?" "According to my calculations, we should have arrived 3 minutes ago. We arrived before we left." "No, sir. We arrived exactly when we should have, but the jump time was negative. We somehow traveled faster than our own departure." Dr. Thorne looked up from his console. "The ship's temporal displacement systems are active. It's using some kind of space-time manipulation to enhance the jump drive efficiency." English document. "The ship is borrowing time from the future to make jumps faster in the present." Sharma stared at him. "That doesn't sound legal. I'm not sure it's physically possible, but here we are. Wonderful. We're flying a ship that cheats at physics." This was when things got interesting, because while the Genesis was busy violating the fundamental laws of reality, Admiral Xylos' 7th Fleet was beginning its approach to Earth's outer system. "Sensors detect the human test vessel," Commander Vark reported. "It appears to be conducting maneuvers in the asteroid belt." "Excellent. We'll observe their capabilities and then eliminate them before they can return to Earth with their data." "Sir, shouldn't we report this to High Command first? We're talking about a single human vessel, even if it's their most advanced ship. What possible threat could it pose to the 7th Fleet?" This, as it turned out, was what humans call famous last words. Meanwhile, aboard the Genesis, Sharma was discovering that their test flight was about to become significantly more complicated. "Captain, I'm reading multiple contacts on long-range sensors," Carter announced. "Large formations approaching from galactic north." "How large?" 300-plus vessels, sir. Configuration matches Vultax, Imperial Navy." Sharma felt that familiar tightening in her chest that came with the realization that a routine mission was about to become decidedly non-routine. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations." "Sir," Kale said. "Should we withdraw? We're heavily outnumbered." Sharma looked around the bridge. Her crew was professional, competent, and absolutely terrified, which was, in her experience, a healthy response to being outnumbered 300-1 by an alien armada. "Dr. Thorne, what's the ship's combat status?" "All systems are operating at peak efficiency. The weapons are enthusiastic." "Enthusiastic?" "The ship seems excited about the prospect of combat. I'm reading neural activity patterns that suggest anticipation. The ship is looking forward to a fight, in a manner of speaking." Yes, Sharma considered this. On one hand, they were facing overwhelming odds against a technologically advanced enemy. On the other hand, they were flying a ship that apparently wanted to fight and had weapons that violated physics. "Kale, what's our tactical situation?" "Honestly, sir, I have no idea. The targeting systems are showing me options I didn't know existed. The ship is suggesting attack patterns that, well, they don't make sense, but the computer insists they'll work. Such as something it calls a temporal loop bombardment and another one labeled dimensional ricochet. Sharma nodded slowly. Petrova, can the ship handle whatever these weapons are going to do? Captain, this ship was built to handle things that would turn our best battleships into scrap metal. I think we're good. Carter, can you get us out of here if things go badly? Sir, with these engines, I can get us out of here before things go badly. Possibly before they even start going badly. Sharma looked at her crew. They were scared, but they were ready. They trusted her, and perhaps more importantly, they trusted each other. All right, people, let's see what this ship can do in a real fight. Admiral Xylos was feeling confident as his fleet moved into attack formation. 412 ships, including some of the most advanced vessels in the Vultax Imperial Navy, against a single human test ship. The outcome was so predetermined that he was already composing his victory report. All ships assume attack formation Theta 7, he commanded. We'll demonstrate the futility of human resistance. Sir, Vark said, the human vessel is not withdrawing. It appears to be approaching us. Approaching? Yes, sir. Single ship moving directly toward our formation. Xylos blinked his 4 eyes in sequence. They're attacking us? It would appear so, sir. One ship against our entire fleet. Yes, sir. Xylos felt a familiar sensation, the same one he'd experienced when studying previous human engagements. It was the feeling of watching someone do something that was clearly impossible while being absolutely certain they were about to succeed. All ships open fire the moment that vessel comes within range. Aboard the Genesis, Sharma watched the enemy fleet spread out before them like a metal constellation. Well, that's a lot of ships. Yes, sir, Kale agreed. On the bright side, we won't have trouble finding targets. I admire your optimism. Weapon status. All systems ready, Captain. The ship is eager. Dr. Thorne, the ship's neural patterns are showing extreme excitement. I think it's been waiting for this. Sharma settled back in her command chair. All right, people, let's make history. What happened next would indeed make history, though probably not the kind that gets taught in schools. The Genesis opened fire. Now, when most ships fire their weapons, what you get is a straightforward exchange of energy. You point your guns at the enemy, you pull the trigger, and hopefully something on their end explodes. Simple, elegant, effective. The Genesis apparently felt this approach lacked creativity. The first weapon that fired was something the ship's computer called a phase-locked quantum disruption beam. What it actually did was reach across space-time, grab hold of the target ship's atomic structure, and convince it that existing was optional. The Vultax cruiser Predator's wrath simply ceased to be. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone, as if it had never existed in the first place. What the hell was that? Sharma asked. I'm not sure, Kale replied, staring at his instruments in confusion. According to sensors, we didn't destroy that ship. We uninvented it. The second weapon was labeled Gravitational Cascade Amplifier. This one reached out, found the target ship's mass, and decided to multiply it by several thousand. The unfortunate cruiser Inevitable Victory suddenly found itself crushing itself under its own weight, compacting into a sphere approximately the size of a basketball before its engines finally gave up, and it became a very small, very dense paperweight. Now that's just showing off, Sharma muttered. By the time the Genesis had fired its third weapon, something called a temporal recursion cannon, that apparently shot the target ship backward in time until it crashed into its own past self. Admiral Xylos was beginning to suspect that this engagement might not go according to plan. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted. All ships scatter formation. But the Genesis was just getting started. The fourth weapon created a localized black hole that consumed 6 ships before deciding it was full and politely dissipating. The fifth weapon turned a destroyer inside out, which was every bit as disturbing as it sounds. The sixth weapon somehow convinced an entire squadron that they were actually on the enemy side, and they should probably start shooting at their own fleet. This is impossible, Admiral Xylos said, watching his tactical display update with increasingly creative forms of destruction. No single ship can do this, sir. Vark reported, his voice shaking. We've lost 47 ships in the first minute of engagement. 47, 49 now, sir. That last weapon appears to have convinced 2 of our cruisers that they were actually antimatter. Sharma, meanwhile, was having the strangest combat experience of her career. Petrova, are we even controlling this thing? I don't think so, Captain. The ship seems to be selecting its own targets and weapons. We're just along for the ride. Carter, what's our status? Sir, we haven't taken a single hit. The ship is moving in patterns that, well, they shouldn't work, but every enemy shot is missing by exactly the margin it needs to miss by. The ship is dodging. The ship is dancing, sir. It's like it knows where every shot is going to be before it's fired. Dr. Thorne looked up from his console, eyes wide. Captain, I'm reading massive neural activity from the ship's organic components. It's not just thinking, it's thinking in multiple dimensions. It's calculating probabilities across parallel timelines. English document. The ship is cheating. It's looking at every possible future, picking the one where we win, and then making sure that's the timeline we end up in. Sharma absorbed this information with the kind of calm that comes from having given up on the universe, making sense sometime around the 3rd impossible weapon. So we literally cannot lose this fight. Not as long as the ship wants to win, no. And does the ship want to win? Captain, the ship is having the time of its life. I'm reading neural patterns that suggest it considers this the most fun it's ever had. By the 10th minute of combat, Admiral Xylos's overwhelming force had been reduced to approximately half its original size, and the survivors were beginning to question their life choices. Sir, Admiral Euler reported, is requesting permission to withdraw. Denied. Admiral Thor is also requesting withdrawal. Also denied. Admiral Morkan has already withdrawn. What? He jumped his entire battle group out of the system approximately 3 minutes ago. His last transmission was, and I quote, "This is madness and I refuse to be part of it." Xylos watched another squadron of his ships get caught in something the human vessel was calling a probability storm, a weapon that apparently made it statistically inevitable that the targets would suffer catastrophic system failures. Maybe Morkan had the right idea. Meanwhile, the Genesis was discovering new and exciting ways to violate the laws of physics, warfare, and good taste. Its 15th weapon had been something called a humor inversion beam that made the crew of an enemy destroyer laugh so hard they forgot to maintain their shields. The 16th had been a logic bomb that convinced a cruiser's computer systems that propulsion and life support were mutually exclusive concepts. Captain, Kale said, I'm not sure how to report this in the after-action report. Why not? Because half of these weapons don't exist, and the other half shouldn't be possible. Put down that the ship exceeded expectations. By how much? Sharma looked at the tactical display, where the Vultax fleet was in full retreat. All of them. The final straw for Admiral Xylos came when the Genesis deployed what its computer cheerfully labeled as a causality violation torpedo. This weapon traveled backward through time, hit its target before it was fired, and then returned to the present to explode again, creating a temporal paradox that somehow managed to destroy the same ship twice. That's it, Xylos announced. All remaining ships, emergency jump. Get us out of here. Sir, we're abandoning the mission. Vark, we're abandoning the idea that this universe makes sense. Execute the jump now. The surviving ships of the 7th Fleet, all 43 of them, jumped out of the system so fast they left scorch marks on space-time itself. Aboard the Genesis, Sharma watched the last of the enemy ships disappear. Well, that was something. Captain, Dr. Thorne reported, the ship's neural activity is returning to normal levels. I think it's satisfied. It's satisfied. The neural patterns suggest contentment, like a cat that's just caught a very large mouse. Sharma nodded slowly. Petrova, damage report? No damage, Captain. In fact, the ship seems to be in better condition than when we started. I think the combat actually improved its systems somehow. Kale, casualty report? No casualties, sir. No injuries. Chief Petty Officer Williams reports that the artificial gravity actually got more comfortable during the fight. Carter, can you plot a course home? Already done, sir. The ship has provided me with 17 different routes, all of which will get us back to Earth before we finish this conversation. Sharma leaned back in her chair. All right, people, let's go home. The journey back to Earth was considerably less eventful than the outbound trip, mostly because the Genesis had apparently decided that it had proven its point and no longer needed to show off. The ship traveled at a reasonable speed through normal space-time, without borrowing time from the future or convincing any fundamental constants that they were optional. When they arrived at Earth's orbital shipyard, Sharma found General Volkov waiting for them with an expression that somehow managed to combine pride, terror, and the kind of exhaustion that comes from explaining impossible things to skeptical superiors. Sharma, he said, I need you to tell me exactly what happened out there. We encountered a Vultax fleet. We engaged them. We won. Sharma, General, when you say won, what exactly do you mean? Sharma considered this. We destroyed or disabled 304 enemy vessels in approximately 14 minutes, took no casualties, sustained no damage, and sent the survivors running home to tell their friends that humanity is not to be messed with. Sharma, yes, General. Please tell me you're exaggerating. I'm really not, General. General Volkov was quiet for a long moment. The Vultax Empire has sent a formal request for a ceasefire. That was fast. They transmitted it while you were still in combat. Their exact words were, we formally request an immediate cessation of hostilities with the human species on the grounds that they have clearly gone insane, and we do not wish to find out what they will do next. Sharma smiled. I think that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us. Sharma, what the hell did we build? I think, General, we built exactly what we needed to build. And that, more or less, is how humanity accidentally created the most terrifying weapons platform in the galaxy, by trying to build a simple test ship. The Genesis was quietly retired from active service and put into what the official reports called strategic reserve, which was military speak for locked in a vault somewhere until we figure out what to do with it. Sharma was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's entire defense fleet, on the theory that anyone who could survive a fight like that without going insane was exactly the kind of person they wanted in charge when the next crisis arrived. The Vultax Empire, meanwhile, decided that maybe conquest wasn't such a great idea after all, and began focusing on peaceful trade and cultural exchange. Admiral Xylos was quietly reassigned to a desk job in the Imperial Cartography Department, where the worst thing that could happen to him was a paper cut. Dr. Thorne spent the next several months writing reports that nobody believed and papers that nobody would publish until he finally gave up and became a science fiction writer. His first novel, The Ship That Thought It Was God, became a bestseller in 17 star systems. Chief Petrova was promoted to head of the Alien Technology Integration Department, where she spent her days trying to figure out how their other captured alien devices worked and her nights having nightmares about sentient weapons platforms. And the Genesis, well, the Genesis sits in its secure facility, humming quietly to itself. Its organic neural networks dreaming digital dreams of the day it convinced an entire alien fleet that maybe, just maybe, they should find a safer hobby than trying to conquer humanity. Because that's the thing about humans. We don't just fight. We improvise. We adapt. We build things that shouldn't work, and then we're surprised when they work better than they should. We're the species that looked at faster-than-light travel and said, you know what? This needs more cowbell. We're the ones who took alien technology designed for exploration and turned it into something that could delete enemy ships from reality. We're humanity, and we're just getting started. Epilogue. 6 months later, Admiral Sharma was in her office reviewing fleet deployment reports when her aide knocked on the door. Come in, Lieutenant. Sir, we've received a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting a meeting to discuss, and I quote, the human problem. Sharma looked up from her reports. The human problem? Yes, sir. Apparently, since word of the Genesis incident spread, 17 different species have petitioned for membership in the Terran Defense Alliance. They want us to protect them from other species who might want to invade them. And 11 other species have formally declared humanity a galactic threat and are demanding that we be quarantined to our own star system. Sharma leaned back in her chair. Lieutenant, what's your assessment of the situation? Sir, I think we've accidentally become the galaxy's biggest deterrent to interstellar warfare. Everyone's either too scared of us to fight each other, or they want us on their side. And this is a problem how? Well, sir, the Galactic Council is concerned that we're disrupting the natural order of conquest and subjugation that's been the foundation of interstellar politics for the past 10,000 years. Sharma smiled. Lieutenant, send a reply to the Galactic Council. What should it say, sir? Tell them we'll be happy to discuss the human problem at their convenience, but mention that we'll be bringing the Genesis to the meeting. Sir, the Genesis is in secure storage. I know, but they don't. The lieutenant grinned. Yes, sir. I'll send that message right away. Sharma returned to her reports, humming quietly to herself. Outside his window, Earth's orbital shipyards were busy constructing the next generation of human starships. Vessels that would be faster, stronger, and considerably more creative than anything the galaxy had seen before. Because that's what humans do. We don't just build ships. We build possibilities. And the universe, for better or worse, is about to find out exactly what that means.